everyone and welcome to a new video. Today let's talk about how to start a Tyranid army in 10th edition of Warhammer 40k. This is going to be a fun video and I'm going to enjoy it because at the moment I'm building a Tyranid army. Because of that, as usual, this video is going to be my point of view based on my own experience. So, if you have a different opinion or you have a different approach on how to start a Tyranid army, please let me know in the comments because actually I'm quite interested about different opinions. Anyway, with all of that being said, let's start talking about Tyranids. To make things easier, I would like to divide this video into different parts. So obviously we are talking about starting a new army, and because of that the first thing that we need to address is the Tyranids combat patrol. After that I would like to talk about the Codex because this is the most important reference that we are going to have for the Tyranids in 10th edition. And at that point, based on everything that I said before, I would like to talk about the miniatures that I consider that we should buy. Let's talk about the Tyranid combat patrol that you can see here already. In this combat patrol we are going to have like a nice range of miniatures. We are going to get one winged Tyranid Prime. It's the only miniature in this box that has the Synaptic keyword, quite important for the Tyranids, we will talk about that later. Then we're going to have 2 Reaper Swarms, 20 Termagants, 5 Barb Gowns, 3 Von Ryan Leapers and 1 Psychophage. This is going to be complicated, okay, because the combat patrol by itself it's okay and I like the contents of it. It's like one step in every direction of the Tyranid army that we can assemble. So it's like a nice starting point, it's like a nice foundation, and from this we can decide to build into what we like the most. My issue is with the actual Tyranid combat patrol, because at the moment of making this video it is cheaper to buy this starter set plus the 5 Barb Gowns, and it's not only going to be cheaper, we also are going to be getting a small Space Marine force. So actually, at the moment of making this video, I can't recommend buying the Tyranids combat patrol, because of course Tyranids are one of the main characters in the beginning of 10th edition, so of course they appear in the starter sets and it's like a super cheap way to get the miniatures that appear in the combat patrol. So that's why I think that it's wiser to go for the starter sets rather than for this specific combat patrol. Even if you don't want to bother of buying 2 different boxes, you prefer just to get the combat patrol because you don't want to have those Space Marines at all, I think that it's nice to get those Space Marines, because even if you don't want them, they can be quite nice for things like decorating the bases of your Tyranids, like you can see here. That, by the way, I made a video painting this miniature and assembling this small Space Marine in the base, so in case that you're interested I will leave the link in the description. And that leads to my next point. Even if I don't recommend the combat patrol, I really recommend the starter sets for the Tyranids, because in those starter sets we have like a nice variety of units and it's like a quite simple and cheap way to have a foundation for an army. At the moment of making this video, the Psychophage that comes there, it's not great, the Winged Tyranid Prime is not great, and we have the downside that those Termagants there in the starter set, they don't have access to all the weapons that they can have, because they are lacking the options that, for example, the Termagants that you can buy individually have. But still, I really think that it's like a nice foundation. Now we can continue with the Codex, because of course if we want to play Warhammer 40k and we want to know the rules and everything, we need to get this book at some point, because it's not only that here we have the lore of the Tyranids, we have a lot of information regarding the detachments and all the data for the units. This also will unlock the Tyranids in the Warhammer app. And that is very important because in the Warhammer 40k app is where we can find all the updated information about that specific faction. So having that codex is going to allow us to have all the information totally updated for the Tyranids. And in that book we have the army rule of the Tyranids and the 6 detachments that they can use in game. In the Tyranid Codex we have the Tyranid's army rule, that it's divided into 2 things. We have the synapse, that means that every Tyranid unit that has the keyword synapse has an aura of 6 inches, and miniatures within that aura, they have every time that they have to pass a battle shock test, instead of throwing 2 dices, you're going to be throwing 3 dices. And then we have Shadow in the Warp. That means that once per battle, only once per battle, in our command phase or the rival command phase, we are going to be able to unleash the Shadow in the Warp. That means that every enemy unit must take a battle shock test. That is the army rule for the Tyranids. It's going to be like that regardless of the detachment that we choose to play. The detachments is just going to be like the way that we play the Tyranids, but that's the army rule and it's going to be always there. That's why I think that one of the must-have miniatures in the whole Tyranid range is going to be the Neurotyrant. Because this cute little thing that we can get in this box here with this other cute little thing has like a super nice abilities, that it has like super nice synergy with the army rule. The Neurotyrant has the Synaptic keyword, and aside from that has 2 nice abilities. One of them lets you choose 2 different units within certain range, and you can let's say make those 2 units to be considered to be in synaptic range even if they don't have synaptic units close to them. That's quite nice because, as we established already, it's good to have units in synaptic range. If this miniature is on the battlefield, when the enemy unit takes this battle shock test, they have to do it with a -1. So, as I said, I consider that this specific miniature can be important in every single detachment. Now, I would like to talk a little bit about each detachment because, I don't want to go too deep because this is a video about how to start collecting Tyranids, not about how to play them. So I will talk a little bit about each detachment, and after talking about each detachment, I would like to mention what miniatures we should get if we like that playstyle, or what miniatures I consider that they benefit the most from that specific detachment. Let's start talking about the invasion fleet. I actually like this detachment a lot because it's the most generic one, and of course I don't mean generic in a bad way. I mean generic that this detachment suits perfectly every possible Tyranid unit in the Codex. So that's quite nice because this one allows us just to take the miniatures that we like or we want, and we can put all of them together in one detachment. With the rest of the detachments, we can still mix different types of Tyranids, but still those detachments are maybe more focused into something specific. And I say that it's generic because the detachment rule of this specific detachment allow us to choose how the critical hits of our Tyranids will work. We can choose to have lethal hits against the vehicles and monsters, or we can choose to have sustained 1 hits against infantry and swarm units, or we can have precision hits against units that are going to be led by characters. So as you can see, there's no specific thing that it's going to affect these specific Tyranid units or these ones. No, it's all the RB. So that's quite nice, and that's why I like this one, because I cannot recommend one specific miniature type. This is more going to be like, get what you want, it's going to work in this detachment. Then we have Crushing Stampede. I mean, obviously this detachment is going to be based around big monsters. Every miniature that has the monster keyword in the Tyranid army will benefit from this detachment. Which this detachment says is that all the monster creatures in our army, if they are wounded, they are going to have a +1 to hit, and if they are below half of their initial wounds, they will have also +1 to wound. The detachment rule, all the enhancements and all the stratagems in this detachment are focused only to Tyranid monsters. Does this mean that we cannot take other miniatures? No, I mean, we can take them, it's just that we are not going to have extra things for them. Of course, we can have some Von Ryan Leapers, some Lictor, we can have some Termagants to have some objective, we can have other things, but of course the main stars in this attachment are going to be the huge Tyranid monsters. Now the question, what is a Tyranid monster? So, Tyranid monsters, we have characters: Hive Tyrant, Neuro Tyrant, Old One Eye, Tervigon, the Swarmlord, Winged Hive Tyrant. Then we have transports like the Tyrannocyte, then we have other datas with the Carnifexes, Exocrine, Harpy, Haruspex, Hivecron, Maleceptor, Moloch, Norn Assimilator, Norn Emissary, Psychophage, also this one as well that I had still here, Sporosis, Toxicrine, Tervigon, Tyrannofex, and then we have the other ones from Forge World, so I will leave it right here. As you can see, there's like a lot of monsters to choose from there, and that's nice to have like a big selection of units that we can choose for this specific detachment. So if we want to play this Crusher Stampede with huge monsters, those are the miniatures that we have to aim for. Now let's talk about the complete opposite. Let's talk about Unending Swarm. This is the total opposite. I mean, here we are going to focus our army into the small Tyranids. Small ones, but in big numbers. To be honest, I'm not sure about how to pronounce the detachment rule of this specific detachment. But anyway, the important thing here is that the detachment rule allows our swarm units to move 1d6 inches once our enemy shoots at them and destroys at least one model. We have to move to the closest possible enemy unit, except aircraft of course, and we can end up into engagement range. That's quite nice, that's quite good. And of course, if our swarm unit is battle shocked, we cannot do that. The enhancements are focused into Tyranids that will be leading other units, and the stratagems are going to be focused into swarm units. That means that if we want to really put this detachment to good use, we should focus into these swarm units that are going to be Termagants, Hormagants, Gargoyles, and then Neurogants. But of course, even if the detachment is more focused into these specific units, I do consider that it's wise to get different units that will actually benefit these ones. Like for example, the Winged Tyranid Prime is quite nice here because we can attach it to the Gargoyles. Or for example, the Tervigon, it's a monster, but this monster is meant to, let's say, support the Termagants. So of course it's not a bad idea to invest into this big monster to be with our swarm. It is time to talk about the assimilation swarm, and this one is more into the theme of the Tyranids that go to the battlefield and they just devour everything, and with that biomass they are going to create more Tyranids or regenerate Tyranids. Detachment rule: feed the swarm. This means that if we have a harvester unit, new keyword, if we have a harvester unit within the range of an objective marker, we can choose one Tyranid unit of our army, that it's going to be within 6 inches of this harvester unit, and we can do 2 different things. One model in that unit regenerates 1d3 wounds, or one destroyed miniature returns to that unit with its full wounds remaining. Of course, except characters. And if we choose a Endless Swarm unit, going to be 3 miniatures. What is a harvester unit? Quite easy. We have Psychophage, Haruspex, Pyrobor, and Reaper Swarms. Obviously, the enhancements and the stratagems are going to be focused into these harvester units and the regeneration mechanics, but still, we don't need just to focus into these 4 different units, because as we established right now, we can bring back miniatures from the Endless Multitude, or we can heal units. So this is something that we need to have in mind if we want to maybe bring really tough resistant units, and then we are going to be regenerating or bringing back models from that unit. So that's something that we can do, and it seems fun to me. Let's talk about the Vanguard Onslaught. I like this one because it's focused into one specific type of unit, but still benefits the whole Tyranid army. Here we have 2 different detachment rules, and that's quite nice. The first rule is that in this specific detachment, the Death Leaper, super cool miniature, this one can be the warlord of our army. The second rule allows our Tyranid units to charge in a turn in which they fell back, which is quite nice. And the Vanguard Invader miniatures, a new keyword here, they are able also to advance and charge. So now we need to ask ourselves, what is a Vanguard Invader? Let's read it right here, and we have characters: Broodlord, Death Leaper, Parasite of Mortrex, Winged Hive Tyrant, Winged Tyranid Prime, Gargoyles, Tyrannocyte, Gene Stealers, Harpy, Hive Cron, Lictor, Neurolictor, and Von Ryan's Leapers. It sounds quite nice, and of course most of the enhancements are meant to be used with these Vanguard Invaders, and all the stratagems are meant to be used with Vanguard Invaders. We have like a bigger selection of units, that's nice, and this also affects the whole Tyranid army, which is nicer. Of course, if we want to focus into this specific detachment, we should try to get the miniatures that I mentioned previously, especially in my opinion the Death Leaper, because it's like a fantastic miniature, it's super cool looking, and of course after that we can decide on what we like the most, but for sure this one looks quite nice and quite interesting. And finally we have Synaptic Nexus. I like this one a lot. I have my favorites, but I like this one a lot because this one is more focused into synaptic and psychic powers. The detachment rule is synaptic imperatives, and at the beginning of the battle round we can choose one of the 3 synaptic imperatives that we have, and we can choose each of them only once. That means that there's like 5 turns and we will have them for 3 different turns. And obviously this is Synaptic Nexus, so these imperatives only work in units that are going to be within synaptic range. So basically we can choose between 5+ invulnerable save, add 1 to advance and charge, and then add +1 to hit in melee combat. And as I mentioned previously, this only works if the unit is within synaptic range. And this is quite important because the enhancements are meant to be used either with synaptic miniatures or psychic miniatures, or both of them at the same time. So we need to have a lot of synapse. And same with the stratagems, they are meant to be used for synaptic Tyranids or Tyranid units that are within synaptic range. I like this detachment a lot as well because it's it's not as generic as Invasion Fleet, but here we also have benefits for a lot of different Tyranids. So that's quite nice in my opinion, and when I finish my Tyranid army, I would like to try this detachment first. So it's a nice one because here we can also have like a quite nice variety of different Tyranid units, and they should work as long as we have a lot of synaptic range. And that's mostly it. I mean, until here we talk about the combat patrol, we talk about the starter sets and the different detachments that we can find in the Codex and the playstyles that we can find in them. And we talk a little bit about a selection of miniatures that will suit the most in those specific playstyles. For me, it's important that this video is not a okay, if you want to start Tyranids, you have to get this, this, and this. Oh, no, I want something more like, okay, with the Tyranids, you have this playstyle, and this playstyle. And if you want to focus into this playstyle, you should try to focus into these miniatures, or at least you should have these miniatures. So I tried to have that kind of approach with this video, and I hope that it will be helpful for someone. As I said previously, I'm also starting a Tyranid army in 10th edition, and it's going quite well until now. It's quite fun to do Tyranids. They are super cool looking monsters. They have like a nice refresh in the range. We have also like a lot of new miniatures for them. In my case, I started my collection with the Tyranid half of the Leviathan box that I got back in the day, and then I got the Parasite of Mortrex and a Norn Emissary. And basically that's my army until now. I need to increase it, but I'm not 100% sure about how I'm going to do it yet. For sure at some point I will try to get a Norn assimilator because I like it. I mean, I want to start my army getting the miniatures that I like, because that's for me the most important approach. You are starting to collect an army, so of course go for the things that you like the most. Then you can decide if you like them in game or not, and if they are good in game you will have them and you will use them. So that's my approach. Like, I want to start getting the things that I like. Aside from that, I would also like to get, for example, a Lictor and maybe Death Leaper, maybe some Gene Stealers that they are cool as well, and the Bioboard also looks quite interesting, and probably the starter set, because like this, with the starter set I will like fill all the gaps and have like a lot of miniatures, because there's like a lot of them right there. So that's kinda my approach to how to finish my Tyranid army, because those are things that I like, and I think that that's the most important advice. If you are starting an army, you can focus into the things that you like the most, because there's no point into getting the things that are working in game right now, because maybe they are working right now, but in 2 months maybe they are not working that well. So that's why I want to get the things that I like, and once I have like my proper 2000 point Tyranid army, I would like to use it and play with it, and then I will be able to decide and say, okay, these units are not working at all, I should replace them with something different, or this unit is working quite good, I should tried to make it even better and maybe get some support for this unit or something like that, you know. I think that that's like a nice approach. Have in mind the playstyle that we want to do, or how we want to play, then we get the miniatures that we like, and then we can decide of the things that we have, which ones are working, which ones are not working, or maybe we can have something that is not working too much, but we can make it work maybe in a different detachment, or maybe we can get some unit that will support this one, or some character or some specific unit, and then it will be better. So That's my approach, and that's something that I will recommend, of course. And as usual, this is my opinion based on my experience, and if you have a different experience and a different opinion, please let me know in the comments. And this is everything that I have to say about how to start a Tyranid army for now. So with all of that being said, this is the end of the video, so I hope that it was at least a little bit helpful, and if you're still here, as usual, please consider giving me a like and subscribing. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.